Welcome to Virtually Amazing, the podcast for virtual assistants, with me, Shelley Fishel of Tomorrow's VA, and Joe Brianti of JLB Business Consulting. Each week, we chat with amazing guest experts, all aimed at helping you grow your VA business. So sit back, grab a cuppa, and tune in for a fun-filled episode. Welcome, listeners, to this week's episode of Virtually Amazing, the podcast for assistants. And I'm here again with Joe. And we are recording this episode on the 13th of September. Now, if you listened to last week's episode, you'll know that we recorded that one on the 13th of September. So we've been very busy today, recording 2 episodes. In fact, we discovered that we can't really fit more than 2 episodes into a day, realistically, because it's quite a lot of effort goes into all of this, and we have a really nice chin wag in between as well. So I suppose if we cut the chin wag, it wouldn't take us so long, would it, Joe?
But would it be so much fun, you know?
No, it wouldn't. I mean, that's the whole thing, isn't it? It's got to be fun. Whatever you do in life, you have to do what makes it fun. So today we're going to be talking to Clare Farthing about success, which I think is a really interesting topic. That's just a broad brush, and I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you all about her amazing journey when she joins us a little bit later on in the podcast. But if you were listening last week, you'll know that Joe and I talked about what we were going to be doing for the rest of the day today, and what we've been up to. So I just thought I'd mention one of the things that I have done and did manage to do, even though I wasn't feeling very well, was to get the 2nd edition of my Microsoft Teams book finished. So a little while ago, I was approached. I write for an online publisher called Bookboon, BOOKBOON, and I've got about 19 titles with them across all of Office. And they wrote to me and they said, there've been a lot of changes to Teams. Can you do an update? We want to translate it into French as well. So we also want to translate several of your other books to French. Well, I'm not going to say no, am I?
No.
So more translations means more royalties. So as many languages as you like, Bookboon, please go ahead. So it was actually on my list of things to do. And the next thing connected with that is some updates to my Teams courses, which need to go in because the changes are quite far-reaching. So have you noticed any changes, Joe, when you've been using Teams, or have they not kind of jumped to the forefront?
They haven't really jumped to the forefront. I've literally just this last week started with a new client on a 3-month project, and I've just started using Teams outside of you and I, because a lot of my clients do Zoom rather than Teams. So I've not yet noticed the detail, but
yeah. Well, I think a lot of it, Teams' original raison d'etre, if you like, is as a communication hub within a large business. So it's really a communication and document management tool for corporate-y style business. So 10 plus employees, which 10 isn't corporate, but 10 plus employees or half a dozen employees, where you have a team of people and you want to store your documents. So unless you're using it that way, I think a lot of these updates and changes you might not notice them. But if you are working in that kind of corporate-y type team environment, a lot of them are amazing. There's a lot around meetings that are changing. So breakouts, you can now have, you could have breakout meetings before, you can now have timed breakout meetings, which has been a long-awaited feature. There are different views. So if I'm sharing my presentation with you, I can now decide if I sit in front of the slides, if the slides are side by side with me, or if it's like a TV reporter and they're kind of over my shoulder. So there's lots of different ways. You can now use Teams to host webinars. So the difference between a meeting and a webinar is, in a webinar, your attendees attend without camera and audio. So they can just listen and watch you. You can interact in chat. So webinars has been added. That was added a couple of months ago, but the cumulative number of updates is really big. And then there's some app updates and some integration. Microsoft Lists is now working really well inside Teams. You've got all sorts of things. So it was quite a job, because I had to decide whether I was going to rewrite from scratch or update. And the truth is, I wasn't feeling very good, so I decided to update. But I created a copy of my original manuscript. I would never work on the original. Top tip: don't work on your original document. You'll lose it.
Yeah.
So I went through that one, and I just highlighted everywhere where I knew there was a change. And then I wrote, and in fact, some of the sections I wrote outside of that manuscript on a clean document, because if I'd have used track changes, I wouldn't have been able to see the document. It would have been too confusing. And because I use styles, got to get a plug in here, haven't I? Because I use styles, and because I use outline view, and if you don't know about outline view, I do have a blog post about it on tomorrowsva.com/blog. Just look for outline view. It's the most useful thing for long documents. So it just means that you can collapse and expand your document, you can cut out bits, you can add bits in without all the selecting and copying and pasting and stuff. It's just so much easier. So that was invaluable, but it still took me quite a long time to redo. And I'm doing a webinar for Book Boon the week after next. So I wanted to get it submitted in time for me to be able to sell the webinar, and you can now get my second edition. So yeah, big job. It was a big job. Yeah. So have you ever done anything like that, Jo? Document-wise?
Technical documentation, as a project manager for that kind of stuff, and project initiation documentation and that sort of thing. And also some of the reports I write for clients around their GDPR and reviewing what's right and what's wrong and those sorts of things. But I've never written a book yet.
Well, styles and outline view are good for reports as well as for books, because it just allows you to collapse your document so you can just see your headings. And then when the document's arranged in outline view, when you select heading, you're also selecting all its associated text, which means that if you need to move it somewhere, you're moving the whole lot, which is just phenomenal. It's one of my, I don't work in it often enough because I'm not creating those long documents that often, but if I'm ever working in a long document, that's where I start. And also if I'm creating a book from scratch or a course from scratch, then I will have created an outline for it first. So I will know what the learning outcome is meant to be. From that, I'll be able to figure out what needs to go in. Then those will be divvied up into sections. Each section will then divvy up into what are the different things that need to be stepped into those. And when you outline that in outline view, you can write your outline, your heading 1s, heading 2s, heading 3s. When you then expand it and you start to write the content, there's not a lot of, yes, I've got screenshots and explanations to add in, but I haven't got to think about what comes next because it's all outlined first. And it's a much more productive and effective way of writing. But I think that's enough waffling.
Yes.
Certainly by me anyway. It's getting a bit boring, me talking all the time. So I think
let's go find Claire.
Let's go find Claire. Listeners, we'll be back shortly. Welcome back, listeners. And Jo and I are thrilled to have the lovely Clare Farthing with us now. And she's going to tell you all about herself in just a minute. But first of all, welcome to the podcast, Claire.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies, for having me here. I'm really excited for this afternoon's session.
Yeah, it's good fun. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you. So before we kind of launch into a chat that could take us all over the place, we don't know where we're going yet. What would be really nice, Claire, is if you could tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. What's your background? What do you do now? And how did you get there? What made you choose to do what you're doing now?
Sure. Thank you very much, Shelley. So I'm Clare Farthing. I'm a business growth coach now, and I didn't start life like that, as you've inferred there, Shelley. So thank you for setting the stage. If we rewind back to 2015, I launched a VA business off the back of a hat trick of redundancies. And being quite a positive, upbeat person, I saw it as obviously a great opportunity for me. And my sort of background prior to that was very much corporate career. I was a personal assistant, an executive assistant, an office manager predominantly, in those sort of 3 job roles over my corporate career. And it really took the redundancy happening for the second time in 2015. So basically it happened in the January and then again in the June, for me to think, hang on a minute. I remember a dear school friend, Sarah, saying to me the first time it happened, oh, with your PA skills, you should do that typing from home thing. And I was like, what? Because, even back then, although, VA was very much around, back in 2015, it was still quite a new thing. It obviously came across, I think, predominantly from America, but it was still something where, it wasn't overly known. And I'd heard about it, and she'd heard about it, I think, at one of the business shows, or perhaps she'd been to the PA show, I don't know, at the time, and seen something. And of course, I just went, I've got a mortgage to pay and bills. How could I possibly run my own business? Don't be silly. I need that good old, reliable corporate job. Yeah. So you're nodding your heads there, ladies. So we're all on the same page. We've all been there and done that. So as I say, sort of fast forwarding to 2015, suddenly off the end of a hat trick of redundancies by then, it was like, wait a minute, I've got a great opportunity. It feels like there's this big flashing universe, sign saying to me, here's your chance, Claire, to actually, set up and run your own business. So I wouldn't sit here and say to you and your listeners that I purposefully set up a business to be a VA. I sort of really fell into it. And, the choice of doing and becoming a VA was very much based on the fact that I had those amazing skills from all those years of corporate. So it was a no-brainer to launch a business, obviously utilising those skills rather than going off to do something completely different or something that I was only partially qualified or experienced in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think, you said yourself, how can I do that? I've got a mortgage to pay, mortgage and bills to pay. And if you'd gone off and tried to do something else, you'd have been really, really uncomfortable, because you'd have been learning something new and not knowing if you could do it. Whereas this way, even though you had to learn how to run a business, and we all know that isn't quite how it's depicted in the fairy tales, is it? So there's a lot of hard work, blood, sweat and tears in running a business. No, but seriously, at least you had the foundation to be able to build on, which I think is really, really useful. So what happened next?
So I quickly managed to find the amazing Amanda Johnson, who obviously you both know, and I saw she'd been a guest on a previous podcast as well. And I did her VA Mastery course, which was just fantastic because it gave me all those business foundations to how to set up a business, obviously specifically for VA. So I went through that process, graduated quite quickly, and then was very blessed to then go on to win the Best VA Newcomer the following year in 2016 at the business show. Which was, obviously a fantastic accolade at the time. But what was really interesting was I was working predominantly in my sort of expertise was, a bit of diary management, but also I seemed to fall into social media and sort of the marketing side and writing blogs and doing email marketing for clients. And when I finished working with Amanda, I had this thing where I was like, I need that guidance still. I've gone through that. I've set up my business. I've won an award. I now want to look at growing this business so that I can really sort of decide whether I'm going to be taking on associates. I knew I was never going to go the employee route, but I was going to take on associates, or whether I was actually going to be looking at just, being a solopreneur, if you like, and sort of making those decisions. So I felt like I was ready to carry on working with a coach to help me go through that. So I found an amazing coach, went through her 90-day program, and was at the situation where I literally went to her retreat after that for 3 days. And the story goes, and Jo knows this one, is I drove up the M1 to Warwickshire to this amazing 3-day retreat as Clare Farthing, your virtual assistant. And I came back 3 days later going, woohoo, I'm going to launch my own coaching business for women. And then kind of got home, and you know what it's like when you come back from these events, you're all hyped up and you're like, you know, you're invincible, you're going to do these amazing things. And then you sit there in the cold light of day at your desk and you go, oh, something, where do I start? Maybe I should just, you know, carry on as a VA. But I knew deep down that as much as I had those skills and obviously had won the award and was doing really well and was fully booked, it wasn't actually fulfilling me. And with some of the clients, and one particular client said to me at the time, you know, you're wasted as a VA, you should be a coach, because look at all that you've helped me with. And what I hadn't realised was I had been being paid for the services she was hiring me and paying me for, but also I was giving her confidence. I was helping her with her goal setting and her planning, and encouraged her to go networking, build up the confidence to go networking and get her little, you know, her little elevator pitch written and all those sorts of things. So it was like, actually, again, it was a bit like, you know, when Sarah said, go and be a VA, launch your own business. And it was like, really? No, mortgage, bills. It was the same kind of thing. I was a bit like, you know, who am I to be a coach? You know, I haven't got a qualification. So could I do this? But going on that business retreat and having the support from like-minded community that were all aspiring to grow businesses and, you know, follow their true purpose and follow their path, gave me that confidence and that support to take that step. So very quickly, coming back from that retreat in May 2017, I realised that I absolutely wanted to be a coach, and I was going to niche as best as I could, not knowing what niche I wanted to do, by choosing to work with women, because that is a niche after all, isn't it, ladies?
Totally. It's half the population.
There we go. So that's really how I sort of transitioned from VA into coaching. And it took me about another 18 months to go full-time as a coach, because as we all know, we don't suddenly wake up and suddenly we're fully booked as a coach. And I had clients to offboard, and the great thing was 2 of the clients actually were in a situation where, because of the work we'd done, they were doing brilliantly, and they actually one of them wanted a full-time staff member in there, so didn't really need a VA anymore. So that came to a natural end, which was fantastic. And another one was one where, I don't know whether you've had these clients before, ladies, where you're working with them, but they don't actually really understand what a VA can do, therefore they don't use you. So you're kind of going, you're paying me all these hours and it's great, but it doesn't feel right because I haven't got enough work to do in those hours. So it was one of those where it was kind of up and down, so it was ready to really finish, I felt. And then the third one that I held on to was my local Chamber of Commerce that I was a member of, and they didn't have anybody to take over, and because we got on so well, I just held on to it until I found a brand new VA that came to my networking group who was looking for clients, and I was like, perfect, you can take on and do the same role that I was doing when I started out. So yeah, it literally was October the year before last that I went full-time as a coach.
That's fantastic. That's such a great story. I love stories like that. Make me all warm and fuzzy.
Oh, bless.
No, really, really great. Because I think that's it. I mean, we record. This is the second podcast we're recording today. We recorded one this morning, and we were talking about doing what makes you feel good. And it's just so important, and so many people stay in a dead-end job to pay the bills. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should get up and leave, because sometimes it's just not possible. But I do remember I was working for a training company. I was an employee, and then I went freelance. Before I set up my training company, I was I was a freelance trainer, and I did a lot of work for the company that I used to work for, because that's kind of natural. They were a ready-made client. And one of the other full-time trainers came up to me one day in a break, and she said, I'm thinking of going freelance. Can you give me some ideas about it? And I knew this girl, and I knew that it actually wasn't for her, because she would not have been able to cope with the roller coaster or the uncertainty of when, on those times when there is no work coming in. All the, when you're working as an employee, it's given to you. Yeah, here's your work, get on and do it. Or there's nothing to do today, but you're paid to be there. And it was absolutely clear to me that as I was telling her about it, I could see her eyes going, oh, it's in a panic. So I think it isn't suitable for everybody, but I think if you are that way inclined, it's the best thing to do. What do you think, Joe?
I agree totally. I think you do have to be a certain sort of person, but then I do think that if you step in, you can grow into that and enjoy that roller coaster of business. You know, if you're that way inclined, you can go into it not knowing a great deal and a bit anxious, but you can grow into it. But you do have to have a very strong sense of resilience for it.
Yeah,
definitely.
So Claire, what kind of people do you coach now? Who are the people who are the kind of people, apart from the fact that women, what kind of people, have you narrowed it down any further, or do you just work with anybody?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just, growing as a business owner, and, I'm quite strong on personal development as well. My personality type is actually an empath. And I've recently discovered the HSP, the highly sensitive person element as well. And I've got traits from both. So what has become apparent since I've discovered that over the last sort of 6 to 9 months in terms of the HSP element, I knew I was an empath, was that when I looked at my client type that I've been working with, they were very similar. What that means is for the people perhaps that are listening that are less familiar with those terminologies, is that we're quite sensitive souls. We're quite quiet. We can be quietly confident, but we're not really fans of the shouty, noisy environments. We tend to be perhaps the shrinking violets in the corner. We're the ones perhaps at networking that will go and see somebody standing in the corner and think, I'm going to go and talk to them, rather than maybe a group of 4 or 5 people. And it's been really interesting because speaking to my mum recently as well, things from childhood were coming up. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. How come I didn't realize some of this sooner? And it's fantastic because you can bring, I'm calling it a superpower, people that have these different sort of personality traits. It really is our superpower. And if we're in a position like me, where I'm working with female business owners and entrepreneurs, who are looking, whether starting out in life as a business owner or whether they're looking to grow their business to the next level, it's about helping them tap into their individual personality and their qualities and finding that superpower to help them grow the business that's right for them. Because I'm all about you are your business. And I've always been like that from day one. It's about, okay, when I do the first sort of section of my my framework, if you like, that I take my clients through, it's very much, okay, where are you now and where do you want to be? What is that end result that you're looking to achieve? How are we going to get you there? And within that work, it's actually, okay, what do you want to do? So, Shelley, what did you do before you were married? What did you used to enjoy doing? What hobbies were you doing? Joe, what do you like doing with the family? And we actually concentrate on those goals and those sorts of things that we like doing before we even look at the business element. Because if you're not happy and healthy as you, the person, the individual, you can't actually show up in the right way and with respect and hold the space and time for your loved ones. And absolutely, therefore, you're never going to attract the right clients and be any good within the business or as good in your business. Because to me, those elements are fundamental, and they're in literally that order to make sure that you are able to run that business on the best balance you can. Because again, we know there's no such thing as balance. It's either this way or this way. Yeah. It's a rocky old road, like you said. Running a business isn't easy. So that's what I'm passionate about, and really, work with ladies that are probably empaths, got a tendency for HSP as well, perhaps, or either or, sensitive souls, really perhaps struggle to find their voice, and showing up that visibility element and doing things like video. I've just listening to your previous podcast with Matthew. I've started following him and I've made some notes, and I was listening to what Joe was saying. I do absolutely love doing video, and it's something that I'm upping my game on, and I love Instagram particularly. So it's interesting, but a lot of my clients again come to me and they don't know where to start, and they feel very vulnerable because they're not an overconfident, or what I call the shouty type of people that we often see see on social media. And I know you know not who I mean, we're not naming, but as in the types of people.
Totally.
We're either like that or we're not, aren't we? And we either warm to it, we either attract or repel. And I'm looking to kind of repel those sorts of people, almost in the nicest sense, said with love. But I want to attract the ones that I know I can help start shining brighter and actually give them that confidence to run the business that they want and achieve the goals that they want.
Fantastic.
That's
fantastic. I'm going to use a Yiddish word, kvelling. There's a word kvelling. I want to kvel, when you see a baby and you want to go like that to their cheeks.
In Welsh, we call it the cwtch.
You've both given me goosebumps for some reason. I don't know why. Goosebumps.
No, it's really lovely, and it's quite interesting. I mean, nobody would believe me now, but as a child in the playground, I was the one in the corner that you would have come and talked to. I was very, very shy, and I've had to work extremely hard to be the person that shows up and is out there. And you can do it, and you can do it, but in a social situation, I'm the quiet one in the corner, and it's about, I can almost switch, it's like a switching on a switch. I'm going to this networking event, or I'm going to be speaking at this event. I'm going to be public Shelley. But if I go to a social event, I'm a completely different person. It's really interesting. So that totally resonates. And over the years, being in the training arena, you come up against, or you butt up against all the different kinds of personality type things that you can do. There's so many of them, but they're all useful, I think. And in all walks of life, in business and at home, we need a team is made up of a good team is made up of lots of different types, isn't it? Because we can't all be good at everything.
No, and I think that's the biggest thing, isn't it? I think Joe and I had conversations a couple of years ago around that, when we were talking about, Joe's business journey, which has been incredible to watch, that transition as well. And, it's about finding those qualities, isn't it? And about, getting that community around you, whether it's outsourced community or whether you take on a staff member, or whether it's, you're a solopreneur that absolutely loves and wants to be that person, but knows the importance of having, like me, I've got 2 success buddies who, incidentally, one's I was buddied up with by Amanda back in the VA mentor program. So we're still friends 6 years later, and we're actually really good friends. We socialise and everything. We have monthly calls. And the other one was through the second coach, again, doing the program and the retreat together. Again, we're the best of friends, and have monthly calls. And they don't live locally, so obviously it's been on Zoom, but historically we would have met up in person as well. And we need those people. They're the ones I go to when I've got those challenges, or I might be in tears and a bit upset about something, and equally I'm excited about something, and they'll rein me in and go, well, hang on a minute, I thought you said you weren't going to do that. And they'll challenge me. And what I love about them both is they've both got different personalities and qualities, like we've just been saying. And therefore, I can sit there and listen, I can share what it is I'd like support with that particular call. They will listen and they will feed back, and they will remind me of my personality or something I said before, just to make sure that I'm making the right decision for me and my business, or for my clients potentially. And we need that, don't we?
Yeah. I think when Joe and I were chatting about it before, the first VA that I worked with when I'd set up my company, back 2017.
Right.
No, 2007. I set up the company in 2007. When did I work with her? I don't know. I worked with her for 4 or 5 years until she sadly got very ill, and she used to do my telephone answering as well. And she'd had a stroke. And one day I phoned my office number. And she answered the phone, and it sounded like she was drunk. Now I knew she wasn't drunk, but I hadn't realised, because we communicated by text and email. I hadn't realised, and I just said, I'm really sorry, but a new client phones and it sounds like I've got a drunk person answering the phone. It was really difficult, and I know I didn't handle it well, but we've since made up, so that's fine. But she was as much as assistant as a business coach. So she would be saying, well, have you thought of doing this? Or, well, why don't you do that? Or no, you really shouldn't be doing that. And
then you're like, why not? Because you kind of feel like you really want to do it. And you're like, oh,
but she could see different things that I could see. And since I've not worked with her now for 5 or 6 years, but I've really missed that element of a sounding board, and I think it's really important. It's really important. So I bet your clients are very lucky to have you. So
thank you.
I know, really, really.
Interesting what you said there about a sounding board, because one of my clients sometimes, want starting out but predominantly established businesses, and they're looking obviously to grow it or launch a new product or a service. But I had a client recently who I met through a networking group I was part of a year ago, and she said, I don't really want to coach. I don't think. Well, I probably do. I don't really know. But ultimately, I just want a sounding board. I want a business confidant. So I said, I think I like the confidant term. We'll go with that rather than sounding board. And it was really interesting because she would show up to the Zoom sessions literally, and I wouldn't have a clue what we were going to cover, what kind of advice, support, questions, because I do mentoring as well. I kind of switch in whatever the client needs, my intuition. And that's what I would do. And I loved working with her. We worked about 4 months in the end. I loved it. And she's hoping to do some more with me later this year. And I can't wait because it was such a different dynamic for me. It brought out different qualities and skills that I needed to, to get the best out of her and to help her move forward. But it was very different from sort of being a coach and having sort of framework and structure to go through. So it was like a little exciting side project. So again, I think, isn't that the beauty of business, where it's not always very black and white. And if you are forward thinking and you are somebody that can use their intuition, then you've got a fantastic opportunity to work with different clients, and you don't really have to niche too much, which again, weirdly enough, was mentioned on that podcast earlier, wasn't it? Matthew.
Yes, and we talked about it this morning with our previous guest Sarah as well. We talked about a hot
topic, obviously. Again.
Well, I think it's really important because whenever you learn anything about marketing, or you talk to any marketing coaches or any startups or anything, the big thing is the N word. I'm part of a trainer community. I do IT training, but there's lots of other trainers in that community. They do all the soft skills, anything you could think of, health and safety, mental health, diversity and inclusion, GDPR, all sorts of trainers in there and speakers who do that sort of thing. And we all kind of help each other with those things because we're all trainers. So we all have the same kind of, at the end of the day, we all have the same issues. Your difficult delegate in the room, how do you deal with them, that sort of thing. But how do you deal with a non-paying client? I mean, the same thing in the VA world, you're going to have them. So a business is a business. Just be fit. I was going somewhere else with it, and I just realised I've gone right off what I was going to say, and I can't remember what I was going to say anyway. So, Jo, have you got anything to add at this point? Enough of me.
No, I'm just really interested. I mean, Claire and I've known each other a long time, even before we had that call, like 2 or 3 years ago, and I've known Claire since she was part of Amanda's kind of VA grouping and stuff. And it is interesting to see how you've pivoted and how you're now making a success of this new career and that sort of thing. And I wonder, what would be your top tips to our community in terms of, building for success? What are the key things you think they need in their businesses? Not necessarily to be the next coach, but there will be those people who are very happy being a VA. What do they need to do to ensure their success in whatever their option is?
Great question, Jo. Thank you. To me, what I've learned over the last 6 years now is it's about making sure you're happy and you're fulfilled and you're doing what you love doing. That's ultimately thing. And I think once you try and deviate by adding perhaps another VA service, to use the example for your predominant audience, is really think about, actually, is that something that you enjoy delivering? Is it something you think you would enjoy? Have you got the right experience to make sure you're giving the ultimate quality, high-end result for your client as well? And I know that we can start off and we have to learn. And, put my hand up to that. I remember, I think it was MailChimp when I said, oh, I could do email marketing. And then it was like MailChimp. And I remember going, Amanda, how do I use MailChimp? She's like, YouTube. And we have to start somewhere. And the deal was, and I said, well, how can I charge them? And again, it's, that whole thing where you're honest with the client and you say, look, I'm just learning this. I'm not going to charge you full rate. Let's do 3 months at something and let's try, and it's those sorts of things that you can do. But if you're trying to, to grow your business, make sure it's something that you love doing and you're interested in rather than something you should. And the biggest thing I'm doing at the moment, which you'll see on my social media, is I'm going against the grain of what people think they should be doing. And I'm almost got this, I'm an anti-shoulder, if that's a thing, because
definitely a thing.
Yeah, too many people are feeling the pressure of having to show up on social media consistently, and they think consistent is every day. And I know there's, different views on that, but I personally think if you feel really overwhelmed by showing up every single day, and that's something you've been told, that's not actually going to help you have a successful business, because you're likely to then probably procrastinate, get really anxious about it, start putting it off, and then either putting something out there that's not going to resonate with your ideal audience because you've kind of rushed it and you felt flustered, or you're actually just not going to do anything. So then you're going to wonder why your business isn't growing because you're not actually putting anything out there. So it's really important, in my mind, is to, doing what you love, avoid the shoulds, make sure that it's in line with your goals and your values. Again, a lot of people, ethically don't really look at their goals and see that through with the sorts of clients that they might take on, because it's about the money and they need that income. And often, again, from experience, and I'm sure both of you can relate to this, when you take on the wrong client because of perhaps, oh, I've got that gap or I've got that amount of money I need to fill, it very rarely works out. In fact, I don't think it ever works out. No. And again, we have to learn that. It's not something we can encourage and tell new people coming, into the VA world, but ultimately sometimes people have to experience that and understand to get that lesson of learning. So, really understanding who your target audience is and who your dream client is, client avatar, whatever you wish to call it, is really important to the success of your business as well. Because if you don't know that, then again, your marketing message and that visibility and value you're putting out there is going to be so mixed that no one's really going to understand, well, how can you be helped? What is it you're trying to sell? Are you doing this service or are you doing this? And you've mentioned projects and now you're doing this, and it's so confusing, and they scroll on by or they unfollow or whatever medium, don't read the email if it's email marketing. So being really clear on what you're offering and being good at that, and making sure you are exactly sharing what it is you're helping, that transformation, that you take your client that's stuck here with this pain point and how you get them to that end result. And I think all of those elements there that I shared are really sort of the keys and the fundamentals. And I guess the only other one missing from that is really the pricing element as well, which is obviously like a whole topic and podcast for another day type situation, isn't it? But, pricing for profit, again, so many clients come to me and they think, oh, I put my prices up, Claire, you'll be really proud of me. And, when we get to that section and when we go through the nitty gritty and the finer details, they really realise that actually they're still undercharging. And again, they're therefore attracting the wrong kind of client. So again, that's an element within sort of business growth success to me that has to be a key part of the framework.
Yeah, I think
pricing is such an important. Sorry, I was going to say pricing is such an important part, because for all of us, whether you're a coach, a trainer, a consultant, a VA, if you're not pricing correctly, you're going to attract the wrong client, but also you're going to end up in a position where you're working all the hours God sends and still not making any money in your business, because you're only just covering your costs and a little bit more besides. And you come to the end of the month and think, or the week or whatever it is, and think, well, that's really not worth that, and also pricing in to allow for the fact that as a self-employed person, you don't work 35 hours a week like you did on PAYE. You might only have 20 hours or 10 hours or whatever that looks like of paid client work, but you might have another 10 hours a week, which is your marketing, your blog writing, you're doing your books, raising your invoices and all of those things for, you know, Joe Brianti Limited or whatever your company is, you know, and that has an impact. Do you find that with your clients, Claire?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, for me now, again, the sorts of, I guess, support that I'm bringing to the table, so to speak, for my clients is very much, you know, rather than serving many and all these different services, all these different price points, all these different clients, why don't we actually try and, you know, streamline that and actually have maybe 2 or 3 core service offers? And I think that's, again, the fundamental thing of historically people felt like, oh, I need to offer lots so that I can, you know, have this variety, and we all love variety. You know, we don't always want to be doing the same thing, but, you know, the way I work with my clients now is actually I want to have a bigger impact on their lives and on their business. So by actually working with them more often on a deeper level and having less clients, I'm able to really get to know them and their business, really understand what makes them tick, what doesn't, get to know their personality, because oh boy, even on Zoom it comes across, and you can see, you know, when they're giving me the dog ate the homework excuse, I can see straight through that. But equally, I'm the first to, you know, be sending the virtual hug through the Zoom screen if you know, a client's having a wobble. And I think that's where obviously the empathy side comes in. But it's just, don't we all want to live a life on our terms and it to be fairly joyous and fun most of the time? You know, we know life's not perfect, you know, let's not go there, but ultimately that's what we want to do. We've all got a purpose, we've all got a mission, we've all got that end goal, normally like a financial amount that we know we're going to be able to create that ideal lifestyle for us. So why on earth wouldn't we want to be working with our dream clients, offering what we love doing, whatever those services or projects might look, or training looks like, or consultancy looks like for individuals, and, you know that we're really making a difference to somebody's life and having an impact on them and their business, because that's what lights me up. That's what gives me the goosebumps at the end of the day and makes me sleep well at night. I don't know about you ladies.
Yeah, I just love it when I come off a training session and I know that the person who's been on the other end of it, they're going to be able to achieve so much more in so much less time, and they've learned things they didn't know, and it's just going to make life so much easier for them. And that's the bit that you really like. And I'm sure, Joe, for you, it's when a client says, oh my God, that GDPR is such a mess, it's doing my head in, and you give them this beautiful thing, and they go, oh, phew, I haven't got to think about that anymore. It's such a relief. And that's the bit. Yes, we all want to be paid for what we do as well. I saw a wonderful illustration actually about pricing perception. I saw it in 2 separate groups, and I think, Joe, you've probably seen it. The one about the bottle of water. Have you seen it?
Oh, yes.
So there's a plastic bottle of water, you know, like a small personal bottle of water, and it's 99p in the supermarket. It's £3.50 at the airport, and it's £5 in a hotel.
Okay.
And it's the same bottle of water. They may have changed the label, but essentially it's the same bottle of water. And you don't, I mean, you'll grumble. You will grumble about paying the £5 in the hotel, but you'll pay it. You're not going to argue about it, even though you know that. So why do we often charge ourselves like the supermarket water when we're really the value, we are the hotel water? And you know, when you see that, they showed it, you know, it was very visual, and I thought, boom, that is such a good analogy. I really like that. And it's true. And I don't think it's about just saying, oh, well, I just want to squeeze my clients for as much as they can pay. It's not about that. That's not the thing. It's about the value you bring and the problems you solve.
Absolutely. And I think that's where there's a misconception, isn't there? It's just, I think some people think when we talk about charging your worth, I always back it up with based on the transformation and the value. Because if I say that and don't add those 2 elements, I've been shot down in flames before, and I've had people comment on social media, and I was like, oh, okay, I need to really clarify clearly because I'm causing a what's it storm here about this. And, you know, it's just crazy because ultimately, it's not about the money for me. We need to have a separate chat, Shelley, because I realise that you work abroad, and one of my dreams is actually, you know, it's a lifestyle business for me. It's not all about the money, and I want to go and work in Andalusia part-time. It's been on my goal list, and I'm like this, COVID, do one please. So next year I can actually get out there and start, living in places that I've been researching to see if it is something that's going to, long-term work. And that's what it is for me. And I think a lot of my clients ultimately have families. Some of the children are older, might be university age, some are younger, kind of under 10. But ultimately, not one of the clients that I've worked with, in the last sort of 3 years since I've been coaching, has ever turned round and, implied it's about the money. It's been ultimately about trying to have that amazing lifestyle and being there for the family and being there for the children, school sports day, all the usual thing, doing the school run, all of that. And that's what I love. And I think that's the beauty, isn't it? We can create the absolute business on our terms that we want to and get rid of those Lincoln shoulds.
Totally. I think should is the word. Should be banned. There you go. Double should.
I love it, Shelley.
Yeah, a double should. No, definitely. And the other word. There was a chap in one of the networks that I was in when I first started out, and he had something he called naughty words, and you had to eliminate. The challenge was to eliminate these naughty words, things like but is negative. When you have a sentence and you say but, everybody focuses on what comes after the but, not on what went before. But if you switch it to however, it's a different connotation. You'll think about the however bit. And he had a whole list of these words.
Wow.
And should and could should was top of the list. It absolutely needs to be banned. It's a really difficult one because it implies guilt, I think. Should comes, for me, has a connotation of there's a guilt attached to that because I really should be doing it and I'm not doing it, so I must be a bad person if I'm not doing it.
Exactly.
I think that's what comes with should. This has been a fabulous interview, Claire, and I'm going to draw it to a close, and I'll say the reason I'm going to draw it to a close is I'm really tired. So I'm being completely honest. I'm recovering from COVID, and this week is the first week I've felt a bit more normal, but I do realise I have to pace myself a little bit more than I used to, and I'm kind of, my age is catching up with me as well, I think. That's the bit I'm kind of ignoring, but I'm beginning to flag, and I don't think I will be my best if we carry on. So I think we will draw this interview to a close, but it has been a really interesting interview. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And listeners, we will pop Claire's details on the webpage as usual. And there'll be all the ways that you can get in touch with her and work with her to help you grow your businesses and have your dream life, which I think is fabulous. I'm having my dream life, so why shouldn't you?
Absolutely. And thank you again, ladies, for having me on here. It's been a real pleasure and lovely chatting to you both.
Thanks. Welcome back, listeners, to the last bit of today's episode, which was with Clare Farthing. Now, I don't know about you, Joe, but I think our listeners probably got the idea that we were having enjoyment listening to Claire's story there. I've not met Claire before, but she's an absolute joy to chat with. And I loved her, the way that she morphed and eventually ended up doing what she clearly is meant to do. And I think that's the case for a lot of us. We start out early on in our career or our work. We have a job. My first job was selling carpet. No, my first job was babysitting. As a teenager, and then shop girl and doing flower arranging and all sorts of other things, and then working in a carpet shop, and then gradually working as a shop assistant in a pharmacy, and then I did my 2 years army service, and then after that I worked for a building society, and then you just kind of gradually change what you do while you figure out who you are.
And you take little pieces from every working experience, whether that's from your paper round, your Saturday job, your first job, your second job, you take all of this skill and knowledge with you, and it helps you to grow into who you are and where you're going. And that's very clear from, Claire. She's taken all that experience and learning and you know, she's built it into a business that she's really very passionate about, and she is very inspiring, and she is inspired by all that history to give back and work as a coach.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that the last bit where we were talking about pricing and talking about at the end of the day, now this, no, that's too much. What I was going to say was far too much of a generalization, because there are people out there who have to work because they have to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what they do. They just have to do it because that's all they can do at that point in their life, and they have to put it on. Now, I'm not knocking that at all, because we've all been in that situation at some point. I know I definitely have.
Yeah.
But you just do whatever it takes, whether it's clean houses or babysit every night or whatever it is, just to supplement so that you can do those things. But there's definitely, once you do get to do the thing it is that you love doing, most of the time it's because it's the thing you love doing, and you just happen to get paid for it. And then eventually you realize that, yes, I just happen to get paid for doing the thing that I love, but I actually need to be paid what I'm worth.
Yes.
I don't, you know, because if you're not paid what you're worth, this is something I've learned for myself. If I don't charge the right amount, I resent the work.
Yeah.
And it might be a very small increment that takes it maybe over that next threshold.
Yeah.
But it's that I know that what I bring to the party is going to help you so much.
Yeah.
That it needs to be valued. And I don't know, have you ever had this experience when you offer things for free and people really don't value them, do they?
No, they don't. And I now don't offer anything more than kind of like a 30-minute discovery call type thing for free. You know, I don't even go down the road anymore of things like the skill swap, because it never kind of works out very well.
No, there's always a winner and a loser in a skill swap, because somebody has a greater need and somebody has a greater skill. And I don't think inevitably, you know, I had a situation at the beginning of COVID when I was developing my Microsoft Teams training, and I was just about the only person doing it. And I had somebody who'd found me via a social media post that somebody else was raving about my training. And she said, "Oh, I'm a presentation skills speaker. I've looked at your show reel on your website, the video, and I know I can help you improve. And will you teach me how to use Teams in exchange?" And I said, "Look, I'm running a business. I appreciate you may not be able to pay me at the moment, but I'm really sorry I don't do that," because what she was offering me wasn't going to help me. Actually, I had no need for it whatsoever. So what ended up happening was, about 7 months later, all of a sudden she was back, because she now had a burning need to learn what I could teach, and she paid quite happily whatever it was that I was charging, which was not through the roof. But you know, it's just it does, those sort of situations really make you think. And I also find what fascinating, so we've in the last episode and this, we talked a little bit about marketing. And listeners, if you don't know, and you really should, I have a weekly newsletter. You should all, there's that should word, please go sign up to my newsletter. But don't sign up to my newsletter if you're going to resent the fact that every so often I may make you an offer on one of my courses. Because that's how I earn my money, by delivering training, either live virtual training or people buying my pre-recorded online courses. So this week, and by the time this episode goes out, this offer will have ended. September has been PowerPoint month. All my blog posts and all my newsletters are about PowerPoint this month. And so I decided to make an offer on my PowerPoint course. I have a PowerPoint course called Perfect PowerPoint Creation, which has got over 6 hours of video. Now, that took a couple of months to actually record and put together. It's not a small job to put those courses. I don't just sit here and go, blah, blah, blah. It's planned and executed. So this week I decided I'm going to make an offer to my list. and I'm doing exactly what all the top marketers tell you should do. So I'm not doing anything different.
Yeah.
So I sent out an email yesterday, which was Sunday, saying this week till Friday midnight, you can do this. I sent out an email today. There'll be one every day this week. And on Friday, I will send 2. There won't be one on Thursday this week because it's going to be Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, and I don't work on that day at all. There'll be no social media for me. I will be absent from the online world on Thursday. But there will be 2 on Friday because when I've made previous offers, there are people who don't buy until the last minute. There are people who will buy on the first email within 2 minutes, and there are people who will buy as it's about to expire. That's just psychology and human nature.
The nature of humans.
Yeah. But I've had a couple of people unsubscribe because they've received a sales newsletter from me instead of a information. And my newsletters are very informative, if I say so myself. So, I tend to give a lot of value. And those people were never going to buy from me if they're objecting to me saying you get 10% off my course this week, and they've had 2 emails so far, they were never going to become clients. So they're just costing me money on my marketing list because they're sitting there.
And they're not part of your tribe.
No, and they just want for free. They want everything for free. I think that's where I was going with it. It's the people who want everything for free. I never want anything for free. I value anybody that I interact with. I value their time. I don't want to I'll call somebody and I don't want them to give me an hour and a half doing whatever. I want to respect that, they've got to where they've got to through their journey and their learning and their expertise that I don't have if I need it. So I think that was really interesting, and mainly because we've recorded 2 podcasts today and we've discussed kind of this idea. It's kind of come for me top of mind. So listeners, I'll just do a little bit of freebie plugging for myself now, having said all that. You can find my courses via my website, and there is a newsletter, there is a blog every Tuesday. There is a how-to blog, although I have to admit the month of September, because I wasn't well in August, I have all the blog posts ready to go. They've just not been scheduled, and I just haven't got round to it because I've got to figure out which one goes where. I usually do it at the beginning of the month, the how-to ones. Everything else I outsource, but those ones I do myself. The scheduling of, is what I outsource. Thursday, there is a informative newsletter and another blog post. So Thursday is an informative blog post, Tuesday is a how-to blog post. So there's a wealth of free information on how to do stuff in Microsoft Office on Tomorrow's VA's website. And of course, once in a while, I might make you an offer and say, come buy my tiny thing, please. So that's what we're in business for. Otherwise, we're running a business and we need to put money into our business, for whatever reason. It might be that you've got small children and maybe you're the person that pays for the grandchildren's shoes. Maybe you pay for the holidays, maybe you pay for the extras, maybe you're the main breadwinner. At the end of the day, we're all in business to make money. Yes, and what's fantastic, I think, is what came out of Claire's interview there was when you can both make money and do the thing that you love, that's where happiness is, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, agreed. And she's very right. So, So what's the rest of today looking like for you, Shelley?
I'm going to lie on the couch with a book or a game or something. I am going to shut down because, as I said at the end there with Claire, I am actually really very tired. Could have something to do with the fact that I couldn't get to sleep last night. So I didn't get to sleep till about 2:30. And we've recorded 2 podcasts today, which
it's a long day,
which is quite a lot. And for me at the moment, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I have done a full day of things. So I'm going to go and lie down, and then I'm going to make supper. I'm going to have some sort of chicken for supper before you ask. I'm not sure quite what. It might be curry, it might just be grilled, but it'll be something like that. What about
Something
you?
quick and simple. I've got some emails that have come in while we've been doing this. I've got to send out some invoices.
Oh, that's a good one.
And then I've got a meeting with a charity that I'm working with to help them with their GDPR and their business processes, to have a catch up. Everybody's been away on holiday, things have been happening. So we're planning now for the rest of the 6-month project this evening. And then, yeah, who knows how the rest of the evening will go. It'll largely depend on the two teenagers and how they barrel in and what they need. So we'll see. Anyway.
Yeah, no, so that's it. I think I'm going to go. Listeners, thank you very much for listening to us waffle along again. We love having you. And as ever, do let us know what you think of the podcast. Leave us a comment on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on the website, comment, whatever. We really do want to hear from you because we really value your opinion. And we shall see you next week.
You have been listening to Virtually Amazing, the podcast for virtual assistants with Shelley Fishel and Joe Brianti. We will be back with you again next week with yet another amazing episode. See you then.